I was going to begin a big 4-part Big as Momo Monday this week, but I took the advice of many of you who commented and my mother giving me shit, and I took it easier this weekend and I saw Spider-Man Homecoming. So I decided to review it for you guys. Forgive the craptastic review word. I did these keys, these overlays directly in OBS, and it looks like but it saves me time. So, and it uploads much faster than Adobe Premiere. But this is not what this is about. What this is about, the movie. I really liked it, and this is apparently something of a controversial opinion. Now, it made a butt ton of money over the weekend. It made something like $117 million over the weekend. So no shame in that. That is a pretty good haul for a relatively small film by Marvel standards. Yes, this is a Sony film, but thanks to a very smart Sharesy deal, Spider-Man is an Avenger, sort of. At least he was in the Captain America Civil War movie. And this sort of picks up after that left off. But instead of it being this big, epic Spider-Man saves the world kind of thing, it is very much deliberately a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man film. It is, despite being a Sony film, not a Marvel film, the Ant-Man of this summer. And I liked that a lot. Some people I talked to afterwards, or who talked at me rather dramatically on Twitter, felt that it lacked an epic feeling, that it didn't touch their heart. I disagree. I felt like the very touching moments actually came through the villain of the Vulture. Michael Keaton plays this blue-collar, almost a noble villain. I won't spoil it, but he is as clearly defined and lovingly written villain as you're going to get in these superhero films. Someone actually thought about writing the villain as anything other than bad in all things, and it is wonderful. There are things he will do. There is things he will not do. There is things he will do hesitantly. And there is a noble purpose. There is a sense of he's doing the wrong things for the right reasons that I thought was really, really amazing. Amazingly done. Hope to see more. As for Tom Holland's Spider-Man himself, he's very much a 15-year-old, meaning there was only so much the plot could stretch in terms of emotional depth, in terms of relationships. His closest relationship is with his best friend Ned. And I'm blanking on Ned's last name now. He is a character from the comics. The guy who plays him, everybody has a friend like Ned. I have 4 friends like Ned. We all love our friend like Ned. The guy in the chair, right? Our Cisco, our Win, those guys, it's nice to see these guys finally getting some love in the media, because we all need our wingman. We all need our backup dude. And Peter isn't the coolest to his friend, but it's not because he's an emo jerk like in past Spider-Man films. It's because he has other things going on. Things happen, and he's like, whoa! And he has this 15-year-old ideas of heroism, which means you see something explode, you go check it out. He has the curiosity of a scientist that makes sense in this incarnation. Now, about this incarnation, it is very much the newer 15-year-old high school science genius Spider-Man. It is not the photographer for the Daily Bugle Spider-Man. This, if you don't like that, you may have trouble accessing this movie. For the record, I really like the Andrew Garfield films. Sorry, the film I saw. I did not see the second one because I knew what was going to happen, or I was pretty sure what was going to happen, and I didn't like it, so I didn't see it. And proving that choice of subject, choice of the story you want to tell in film matters so much, more than the lead, because I really liked Andrew Garfield and I really liked Emma Stone. That's her name, right? But there is no Emma Stone in this film. They are teeing things up for future films in a very subtle backdoor way that the more I think about it, the more I like it. But that's a big spoiler, so I'm not going to talk about that here. If you want me to talk about certain elements of the film in that regard, I'll do it later, but not in the review. So that's just laying out sort of my approach. I found the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I really liked elements of the first one. I liked his origin in the first one. I found his Spider-Man smug and whiny. And they took the parts about Spider-Man comics I didn't like and didn't include the elements I did like. Now, again, as background, Spider-Man was the first comic I read outside of a school library. This is kind of funny. My older cousins had left a couple issues of Spider-Man in the outhouse at my grandmother's cottage. And I'm like, comic! And picked it up, and it was one of those ones where Spider-Man was sitting on the Empire State Building and he had a cold. And this was just a revelation to me that a superhero had normal problems. You know, Spider-Man doesn't have a lot of money, so he can't solve his problems by throwing money in and buying a big, time, space, and death machine or using alien technology or something like that. He needs to solve his own problems the way a middle-class person does. And so he gets sick. He has homework. And I thought this was amazing. It was what made me a comics fan. And so I am very attached to the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which is what we get in this film. And so this is a Spider-Man film I really like. I don't care about the teen stuff at all. The name of it, to give it structure, it has nothing really to do with the comic book arc Spider-Man Homecoming. It's just a name they used, and using sort of a homecoming dance as a structure is probably the part of the film that works the least well. It's connected to a major twist in the film, but oh god, I am tired of seeing homecoming dances. Now, if you're a 15-year-old kid, you're gonna relate to that. And this is who I think this movie is for. And so I am going to forgive it that because of the fact that it is a movie for 15-year-old kids. And there is nothing wrong with that. And that is awesome. And everything it does is sort of calibrated to that sensibility. And that is good. It is a movie that isn't apologizing for what it is and isn't trying to serve a million different demographics. It made a movie for a specific audience. And if the rest of us want to come to, awesome. I appreciate that. The one thing, and I didn't even catch this myself because I was having too much fun. A friend of mine pointed out that Peter Parker has no spidey sense in this film. And because we don't have an origin, we don't know why that is. There are a lot of reasons that, it could be, but we don't know for certain why Peter doesn't have his spidey sense, or at least a real underdeveloped spidey sense. It could be that they're trying to use technology to do the same thing as a spidey sense without giving him that sort of precognition. It could be that he's so young and so distracted that he's not picking up on it. There are a couple reasons they don't explain it in the movie because they give no actual details of his powers. They assume you know the Spider-Man origin. He's already Spider-Man to an extent. This is a film that picks up midstream. So I'm telling you this so you're not bothered by it the way my friend was, because I'm glad I wasn't aware of it because it would have bothered me. It would have distracted me. So going in, you're welcome. There are a bunch of really cool Easter eggs. The Tinkerer's in it. Shocker's in it. Michael Mando one of my favorite video game actors. Every time I see him on screen, I'm like, hey, Michael Mando, so cool, it's fast, oh my God. But they're teeing him up as a possible future villain. He plays a character who's also known as the Scorpion. And there's a slight hint at the end that is like, oh, yeah. Could you imagine Voss as a Spider-Man villain? Oh my God. It'd be so good. But my favorite kind of Easter egg in the whole movie was an homage to a classic scene in Spider-Man 33, where Spider-Man lifts a building that has fallen on him. And this was a panel that changed comics. It is one of the most influential single panels in comics. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It is a moment where Spider-Man is almost beaten. A building has fallen on him. That's gotta hurt anyone. And the juxtaposition of defeat and determination in the posture that Steve Ditko drew in this panel is one of the most amazing things possibly in the history of comics, definitely in that era of comics. It woke the industry up to what art can do to convey emotion without a single word. And they loyally and they got the spirit of this scene without replicating it identically the way they did Spider-Man sits in the Empire State Building, Spider-Man sits on the subway, Spider-Man climbs Washington Monument. You know, those moments were recreated. They were just visual, boom, there you go, nerds, have at it. And it works, I admit. I go hee hee hee. But this one, they made little changes to speak to the narrative of that moment instead of just, recreating the pose. And it tells me that the team on this film understands this Spider-Man, the Spider-Man they want to write. In some ways, it harkens back to the Spider-Man I grew up with as a kid, even though he was the photographer for the Daily Bugle. And I think this, as much as I'm going to miss Andrew Garfield, and as much as I'm very much going to miss Emma Stone, she was fabulous as Gwen Stacy. But I see real potential in this do-over. I'm not going to call it a reboot because it isn't. They don't redo the origin. But there's a lot to like here. It modernizes and makes relevant Spider-Man for that 15-year-old audience that I personally think Spider-Man should be for. Spider-Man isn't our, 30-year-old, 40-year-old superhero. We have other superheroes. Spider-Man rightly is a clean-cut, relatable, flawed hero for kids. Not kids, teenagers, young teenagers, people who are just starting to deal with those struggles. And if he's their guy, I'm good with that because they need their guy. And they're setting certain things up so that they're going to have their gal as well in the Marvel Universe. And I'm very excited about that potential if they go through with it. So it doesn't have the epic scope. It doesn't have the wow of Wonder Woman. Don't expect that. Like I said, it is this summer's Ant-Man. And if you go in there expecting that, expecting a lot of humor, a lot of lightness, a lot of fun, a lot of fluffy, and just enough Avengers cameos to seem like it's connected, you're really going to enjoy Spider-Man Homecoming. If you are too connected to the Tobey Maguire films, or you need that more adult Spider-Man, there isn't going to be much for you to connect to here. It is what it is, and that's okay. Okay? Hope you enjoyed that. See you Tuesday.